very easy for us to work through, but yeah, I'm walking a little bit slowly and I will continue moving as we normally do. So if I keep moving, it's because I'm meant to keep moving, not just stop standing still. We're going to do something a little bit different today because obviously we haven't seen you guys in a little while. So we are going to cover a few different things. So we're going to talk about notice errors and rent arrears, and there's a fair bit happening out there in the space. It's a little bit scary at times, what we see and hear, and paperwork that's really, really wrong. We're going to talk about rent reviews because there's a bit of activity in that space as well, and I think this is probably one to watch. We're going to really focus on breaches. I think it's a section of legislation that property managers don't do a lot with, and I think if you don't do much in this space, then you are potentially going to have issues down the track. So for example, if you did a routine and there was a smell, if you didn't identify the smell with the renter at the time of the routine, right, we all have done a routine and there's cooking smells, pet smells, cigarette smell, and then you try and claim it at the end of the tenancy, you're going to have an uphill battle. All right, so making sure that you guys are aware of those sort of scenarios. Managing sales campaigns with tenanted properties. I'm sure you're all seeing lots of activity there. I'm sure the O'Brien sales team are amazing at making sure their paperwork is correct, but there's some loose paperwork out there that we've seen. So we're just going to talk about that. And then just some clarification with regards to minimum standards, because there's been so much confusion over time. And I think personally, the government really did mislead us in getting a whole heap of stuff done that we probably didn't need to get done just yet. And then as always, our case studies. So on your chairs, you've got some breach paperwork, which we're going to go through. And then we've also got all your other bits and pieces. So we're going to start something a little bit different. We're going to, this is a different format. Normally, obviously, we're in tables. So I'm happy for you guys just to move your chairs. You want to sit in circles, or if you want to sit in your teams or your groups, because I don't think it matters. I think it actually works better that way rather than being in the straight line. But we're actually going to work through some scenarios, and we're going to look at different questions. So we're going to spend probably half an hour here for you guys to, as a group, we'll go through the slides one by one. We might break out into your individual offices or in the teams that you're here with. But what we want to come back with is being able to answer these questions. So outlining 3 strategies to manage serial late rent payers. Does the 30-day timeout period apply to 91 ZM matters? And you'll actually see that I'm really trying to stretch your brains in highlighting sections. I'm not referring to components, okay? Risks for the owner and for a business when action's not taken for non-payment of rent. Some examples where property managers go wrong when preparing their notice to vacates. And then when does the 12-month rent arrears anniversary start and finish? All right, so we'll start with that. If you guys want to break into your groups, move around, shuffle, whatever you want to do. The chairs are not stuck, so it makes life a lot easier. Corporate may kill me for rearranging the room. Okay, this is a much better way to train. Hi guys, how you going? You guys have I know you've just arrived, we've just started. Sure. All right, so we're just working through answering some questions. In you go, slide in, round you go. Yes. Yes.
This whole section is pretty much just about non-payment of rent, isn't it? Because we're talking about the risk, 91ZM, serial late payers.
Yes. By default it is. It wasn't my thinking when I actually wrote the questions, but I think I must categorise it that way and then go, next slide. Yeah.
Provide a minimum of 3 examples where property managers go wrong when preparing their notice to vacate.
Yep.
Well, hang on. What type of notices are we referring to? Minimum rental.
Yeah. You can make that assumption. Yep. Easy. You guys all good? Do you guys need this printouts?
Jennifer was getting it next.
Oh, okay. You've got...
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, that's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. We are... Let me just turn my mic off. Sorry. You guys done?
We're not done yet. We're only up to the second page.
All right, guys, we're going to come back in about 5 minutes. I may never get you back. Hello. right, guys, we're going to come back. I know some of you are finished and some of you are still going. All right, so let's chat. All right, come on, you need to come back. We've got a few of these slides to do. It's like herding cats. Yeah, that's it. All right, let's have a look at the answers to these questions. All right, so who wants to start? Some strategies. What are 3 strategies to manage serial late payers? That's where we usually identify the mean property managers in the room straight away.
Building rapport.
Building rapport was not what I expected, but yep, I like it. Yep, I'm very surprised, but yes. Yep, I love that one. I think that one gets missed a lot. Change the pay to date. And leading from that, what could you also look at doing? Yeah, changing the frequency. Nobody teaches anyone to budget nowadays. Even, years ago was never something that we learnt. So changing it from a monthly to weekly to fortnightly payment method. It might incur some additional statement fees, but it might be an easier conversation with the owner rather than every single month. All right, what are some other strategies?
Jane had a really good one.
Yep.
If I'm not getting any correspondence from them when I've been doing routines, I've been taking their ledger with me to try and sit down and have a chat.
Oh yeah, I like that one too. Yeah. Take the ledger to the routine.
Just to educate and show what it's looking like.
Yep. Because nowadays, you think about people who are 5 days late with their rent. If one of my tenants is applying for a property with you guys, you might just go, nah, no way. 5 days late. But 5 days late 5 years ago, 5 days late was nothing in that sense. Now we're probably a little bit more focused on it. All right, we haven't identified the meanest property manager yet. What are the other strategies? A house visit? Face-to-face meeting? What else? What was that in the front?
Threats and intimidation.
Threats and intimidation. No, we don't do that. Remember, we're being recorded. We don't do that. What else? So remember the conversations we had maybe 12 months ago about stopping reminding the renter to pay the rent? That was what I expected from one of you to start with. All right, there's no requirement for you guys to remind the renter to pay the rent. All right, so that they actually do fall into arrears. And then you can take some action. And then you can remind them down the track, but there is nothing that says that you have to remind them. Question?
Does that look bad if you go to recap and say, well, you should remind, you're now 2 days in arrears and 3 days in arrears, like I just constantly.
The tribunal will, or depending on the members might ask, have you communicated with the renter about their arrears? I think you can accurately demonstrate, yes, you have, but you may not have in the lead up to the notice to vacate.
So
Yep.
you're saying don't remind them prior to being due? And
Yes.
then once they're in arrears, say, okay.
Or once they don't remind them until they're 15 days. And then they fall into arrears and then you issue the notice to vacate. Yep. Yeah. Am I the only mean one in here? It's not necessarily a risk because, remember, there is nothing in the legislation that says you have to remind the renter. So if that is your strategy that you guys are putting in place, you need to have had a conversation with the owner. You don't want to be saying to the owner, oh, by the way, I just did a session and Leah said we don't remind the renter to pay the rent. Please don't do that. I don't need those owners calling me. What I'm saying in those situations is if you've got a serial late payer and they're 13 days late every single month, and you guys need a game plan to move that tenant on, preferably not to my portfolio, then you need to think about how do we do that? Because what's something else that we should consider in that question?
Well, the program actually of me that we use
Yep.
sends out an SMS and an email from day 0 that they're in arrears.
Yep.
And then I follow it up within 3 days and say, hey, what are you doing on my arrears list?
Yep, you can do it that way. There are some property managers for certain clients now that I know do a reminder 2 days prior to the rent being due, for those special clients. All right. However, if you've got a serial offender, what would be the other thing that you should be looking at?
How long they've been in there.
Yeah, how long have they been in there? Can you do an end of fixed term? All right, rent arrears is not a reflection on an end of fixed term. It's not retaliatory. If the renter is 10 days late every month, it's not a retaliatory action. You guys could issue a notice for end of fixed term. All right, you guys need to be looking at a wider approach. You guys are very nice to start with. I'm hoping that you're going to get a little bit tougher before the end of the session. But you guys need to be looking at your different strategies, not just always going, do I actually want the renter to stay? Is this a conversation I've had with the owner? Are they staying? Are they going? Because that's a different game plan. Yes?
Yeah, because it's only a minimum of 90 days. You can serve that literally at any kind of.
Absolutely.
At the end to
Yep.
hopefully move on quicker.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a property manager on Friday and they said, the owner doesn't want them to give 14 days return notice because they're getting an end of fixed term. Like, if you're issuing them an end of fixed term, do you really want them to stay? So let them go. If they gave me 7 days notice back, I'd probably go, okay, no problem, let's go. Right? But think about, there's got to be more than one, there's got to be multiple strategies. Right? So think about that moving forward. The 30-day timeout period for 91ZM matters. What's 91ZM? Rent arrears. 91ZM, let me start again. 91ZM is your rent arrears section. So is there a timeout period on your notices of your 30 days on that section? No. Is there a timeout for our other sections? 91ZM is the only section there's no timeout period. So what that effectively means is that you could issue a notice to vacate on a renter, say, it's hard without a whiteboard, let's say the 1st of April. Okay? Yep. I have to get up and down the stairs. So the 1st of April, the renter doesn't pay the rent within that notice period, so we know it's a valid notice. But they pay it the day after. All right, what you guys can think about doing is if the renter falls 14 days in arrears again, you don't have to reissue a new notice to vacate. As this notice to vacate that you issued previously, because it's a valid notice to vacate. So changing your thought process. So when we look at the arrears in my office now, on a Monday or a Tuesday, I'm not going, okay, which ones need a notice to vacate? If I've got any 15 days in arrears, I'm going, which ones have we served notices previously? Because I don't have to then wait 14 days and issue a notice and then make a new app. I can actually utilise the last notice to vacate if it's a valid one. All right, there's some very strange faces at me. Do you want me to repeat that? Yeah, okay. Oh God, okay. Ooh, sorry. All right, so let's say, let's just make sure this is a whiteboard marker. So notice to vacate issued, all right, termination date, let's say it's a electronic consent, so we allow the 14 days. We all follow there? Yep, okay. So, let's say the arrears is $1,000. Renter pays $1,000 on the 16th of April. Okay, so they had arrears, they then paid it the day after the termination date. So this means this notice to vacate is a valid notice to vacate. We can do something with it. Yeah, we all good with that bit? Yep, okay, so renter pays, you go beauty. Renter, let's say, comes the 1st of May. Renters 15 days in arrears again. On this date, you guys do not have to issue a brand new notice to vacate and then wait for service and then wait to make an application. You can make an application to VCAT or the Magistrates Court off this notice to vacate. Yeah? Make sense?
There's a 30-day timer start from the 1st of April.
There's no 30-day time frame. The only thing you need to be watching is that. Okay? This is a really big time saver. Because for PMs, what do we do on a Monday? We usually look at our rent arrears. We go, okay, you know, do I call them? Do I not? Did they pay over the weekend? We get into this auto drive of let's issue a notice to vacate because they're 15 days in arrears. What we haven't done in the past is say, okay, let's go back and look what notices have been issued previously. So maybe this notice was an invalid one in the sense that maybe they paid that $1,000. If they paid that $1,000 on the 13th of April, would that notice to vacate be an effective one that we could do something with? No. But there might be one back prior. That you could utilise. All right, so don't get into auto drive because that's what we do. We just get into that auto process. Okay. Yep. 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 All right.
And then the strike rule applies only if that notice is invalid.
So the strike is if it's, so remember every notice to vacate is a valid strike. It's whether or not you can do something with it or it's what they refer to as a non-effective strike, which means in that example where they paid prior to the termination date. All right? If they pay prior to the termination date, I can't do anything with it. If they pay afterwards, then I can. Yep. We good with that? Yep. Did that just stretch your brains a little? A few of you are like, ooh, who's on my list now? Saves the owner money as well because you're not having to do more notices. Okay, risks for owners. Let's start with that. Risks for owners when rent arrears action's not taken. Yep, insurance, absolutely. Relationship. What else?
We had VCAT.
Yep,
As a result of VCAT.
as a result of it.
As in, so if you're not taking action regularly, for example, a serial late payer or whatever.
Yep.
To build a case once you get to VCAT.
Yep,
To then build a case for a possession order.
yep. You're arguing you're reasonable proportionate.
Correct.
Yep. Yep. Anyone got anything else? What was that one? Yeah, loss of income, absolutely. So let's go to the agency or the business. What are the risks? Management loss, risk of, yeah, no management fees. Remember, that's how we get paid. Yeah, absolutely. So even in those conversations with the owners, and I've got some owners that, you know, they're trying to be nice and they say, no, let's just wait for them to be, I'm happy for them to go out to be a month in arrears before we take action. At that time, please don't say to the owner, can you put that in writing to me? Because if I was your owner and you asked me, honestly, by the time I finished the conversation with you, I'd forget because I was on to the next thing. So it's your job to send an email to me to say, hey Leah, just confirming, your instructions say we're not going to issue a notice to vacate until then. All right, don't wait on me as the owner to come back to you guys. Right, because it's, you know, the owner may not even realise their liability risks. Okay, minimum of 3 examples where property managers go wrong preparing their notice to vacate. Let's focus on the rent arrears section because we've kind of got a rent arrears theme there. Yeah, electronic service. I see that a lot. Property managers just go in autopilot of electronic consent and there is no electronic consent on the lease agreement. What else? No, that's not, it doesn't make your notice invalid. But I'm going to park that and we're going to come back to that one because it is a question that happens a bit. it shouldn't be happening. So in those circumstances, we actually need to be challenging those determinations, right? Because where the property managers are mainly going wrong, if you think about the hub, you know, and it says, what are the arrears owing as of today's date?
In that box, it was all correct.
Yep. The wording on the notice should have no issue. Yep. I would love to see those orders.
Yeah.
If
They
you can,
both threw it out, and it
if
was
you
one
can
of
send
those
them to me.
ones where you
Yeah.
just sit there thinking, what the heck?
yeah, no.
Because the actual box, and I have seen other property managers go wrong there in the box by writing that full amount.
Yeah.
But in these two instances,
Yeah.
us seniors have checked it before it's gone
Yep.
out. Perfect.
Yep.
But because it had that additional line saying, rents, 15
Yeah,
days.
so this is
times
the
whatever it
arrears
is,
owing him for them to be a
today's
week in
date,
advance,
however you need to
fortnight.
pay, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah, to be
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
In that, two cases.
Yeah,
And and that's been recent, I'd say within the past 2 months.
yeah, definitely I want to have a look at
Before
those.
it never used to really have a problem. I
Yeah.
have seen it before, like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But now it seems to be more frequent. That
It
they're-
doesn't make the notice invalid because you could put whatever words you want on a notice.
Yeah,
You know, some of the notices I see where the property manager goes on and says, I called the tenant on this date, I called the tenant on that date, like all that stuff is just fluff. You don't need any of that. So yeah, those two, like I said, I really want to see. And I want to hear about those determinations because we need to make sure if VCAT are making a decision or we're seeing a pattern that for some reason they're seeing that is invalid, then the only way that we can fix it collectively as a group and an industry is to make sure we get an understanding of why, because that is definitely not my interpretation of making a notice invalid. Yeah. Anything else with your examples where a property manager can go wrong? Wording. There really shouldn't be too much issue with your wording.
There shouldn't,
There shouldn't.
but there's been lots of examples
Yeah.
recently where
Yeah.
it has been an issue.
Yeah, because you can just put the amount, from a basic point of view, you could just put the amount owing as of today's date and then put rent arrears owing, and that should never make a notice to vacate invalid. So,
What about calculation of like your actual service days, like your 14, 15 day?
yes, definitely. There's a pattern where property managers are serving notices on the 14th day, not the 15th. Remember, it has to be 14 clear days. Where are some other errors?
The wrong box when it says first, second, third, or fourth.
Yep. Yeah, again, it shouldn't make too much difference. The issue would potentially be on a 5th notice, but, it shouldn't make it invalid, but it is an error. Yep,
Your effective pay to date?
yep. Tell me more.
Oh, like just making sure that you're calculating it correctly if they've made a part payment somewhere along the
Yep.
line. Sorry, Chair.
Yep. So you want to, as long as you are, in your notices, if you have understated your rent arrear calculation by error, that should be safe. But if you've overstated your rent arrears calculation owing as of today's date, that's when it's going to go pear-shaped.
And also names.
Yes.
That's been a big one. I had one of the girls.
Yep.
They had the owner's name written a certain way on this notice, but it didn't match the way the names was written on the lease agreement, and it was dismissed.
Yep. Yep. Spelling of names. Yep.
The other one that I've had lately, more so in relation to VCAT applications, is I'm getting a lot of questions about, just say, I had one recently where it was a superannuation fund that
Yep.
owns
Yep.
the property, and they were asking for more fees, and I had to get the owner to fill out a statutory declaration to say that they weren't a
Yep,
company that was
not-for-profit under
earning,
100,000.
all
Yep.
that sort of stuff.
Yep.
That's happening a lot more now
Yeah,
than
so
what it ever
whenever
has.
you are making an application now and your owner of the property is under a company or a SMSF, what you guys, if you go on to, you can go on CAV's website, you can go on VCAT, or you can go on to ours, you can download the stat deck. So before you're actually having that conversation with the owner, you should be actually sending that stat deck to the owner. Because once you've made the application, it might take VCAT 3 weeks before they say, hey Leah, just so you know that this one needs to have this stat deck. So you're going to be delayed another 3 weeks before getting a hearing. So you guys have to be far more proactive in that space and say to the owner, because the ownership of the property is in this entity, you have to fill out this form in preparation of this hearing coming up. All right. And then obviously, side note, if you're trying to serve a notice to vacate under owner moving in and the property's in a company name or a super, you can't, because the company's got is not a person. So you can't do that. Anything else? Yeah.
In that they sneak a new email address into their rental agreement that you didn't realise was there.
Yeah, with your email addresses, be careful. And I think this is something, you know, we've been doing a lot of training over the last 12 months. And it's something that I don't think, and I can say openly in my office, there are sometimes when Belinda and I are out training, there will be something that will come up and you go, oh, okay, how do we register those changes of email addresses in our own office? So what you need to be thinking about is that if you're going to create, you know, the example of a new lease, a new email address, you should actually have a form that you've created in Inspection Express or whatever you guys use to push out to the renter to say, you know, you've updated your email address, you need to complete this form. And the reason I would suggest you do that and not do a new lease is because if you've got a lease and that tenancy's been on periodic prior to the 19th of June 19 or the 28th of March 21, if you create a new lease, you're going to roll those properties into minimum standards or roll them into 12-monthly lease renewals, rent reviews. All right, so strategically you have to be thinking differently now. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's not something we manage well at the moment because we're not thinking enough of how we create the arguments at VCAT. Question? I do that, sorry. Oh, yeah.
Moving in if it's in a super
Yes,
fund?
so if the property is owned in a company name or if the property is owned in a super fund, you cannot issue a notice to vacate for owner moving in.
What if they actually are moving in? Like if the
It doesn't matter.
you can't.
You
Point
cannot.
blank, you cannot.
Because a company is not a person. And a company can't complete a stat dec. So it can only be in a person that completes a stat dec. I do not know what the other solution is. You have to think. You have to think a little bit outside the box on that one, but maybe, yeah. Yeah, but if also, you know, and this is a challenge when I train because we go like this. If you have a look on any of the socials that, like we've been posting these written determinations. I don't know how many of you guys have seen them. All right, so there was a really interesting one on renovations and repairs where the member wanted a building permit and dismissed the owner's application. So you guys need to be reading these written determinations because we learn from them and we can kind of get in the head as much as we can of some of the members and what they're thinking. There's been some really good ones lately. So if you haven't, jump on and have a look at them because you need to know this stuff. Last one, when does the 12-month rent arrears anniversary start and finish? Move-in date, so it starts on the lease. Lease, start date, end date. You know, even if the lease started in, 2006, 1st of May 2006, it's the 1st of May to the 30th of April. That's your cycle. All right, it's not when you issue notices.
So off the initial lease, so if the lease then May, April changes.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. There's been nothing to confirm. I think you're safer to go off the initial lease unless you can clearly prove that there is a brand new lease and that lease commencement date has clearly changed. Yep. The other thing, just with regards to your notices, just thinking tenant transfers. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but VCAT is like friggin' fox in a hen house on these ones at the moment. If there's tenant transfers, they want to see all of the paperwork. You'll get applications being dismissed because your tenant transfer paperwork isn't included in your notices. It's a biggie. Yes, my dear.
I'm going to make you go off track again. I'm really
That's okay.
Sorry. Sorry, Jem. I have a situation, just picking your brain, where we had a tenant transfer happen.
Yep.
But with a Director of Housing bond. So obviously Director of Housing bonds are non-transferable. The PM at the time did not seek a new bond from the renter that was left in the property, like a new DOH application or anything like that. It's currently awaiting a VCAT hearing for a bond and comp hearing. Now, I've had the renters that moved out contact me saying that they are trying to apply for a DOH bond, a new one, and they're unable to because the other one's still held. Nothing I can do there, is there?
No, I think your application will be dismissed because your application for bond is against the wrong tenant.
That's what I thought you'd say.
Yeah,
Thanks.
That's okay. My time here is done.
On the tenant transfer, going back to that,
Yep.
where does it state in the legislation that you need a deed of transfer? Because it talks about written communication and written confirmation, but it doesn't talk about deed of transfer.
Yeah.
I got caught out with this one.
Yeah, and we've talked about this one.
yeah.
So member query is one. He's a big one on this particular area. But we're definitely, if you'll have a look on your summary of proofs now, there seems to be an extra box that they've added reference to tenant transfer stuff. So have a look at that. But so what we were referring to about this deed, so this particular member said, I want a deed to confirm that there was an agreement. So effectively what you need is something from the owner that says, I, Leah, can confirm that the tenant transfer is approved between, blah, blah, and blah, blah. So you might just have to tweak your tenant transfer process. We've been playing around with a document, so I'm happy to share that once we've ironed out some, everything's beta tested in the office and we go, that doesn't work, that does work. But I'm happy to share that if you guys want that one. And then we think we've captured it, but we've captured it from today. We haven't captured it from the tenant transfers that we all did when we were all working from home in 2019 and 20. All right, so, and I guarantee you're going to have applications dismissed because of not having the appropriate paperwork. So be careful. Yep.
I have an owner who actually is a member
Yep.
at VCAT, and he was...
Hang on, guys. This is it. Yep.
He was saying that with the transfer of lease, and I'd love for you to explain it more because I didn't 100% understand him, was that because the transfer of lease wasn't done correctly, not for his house or one of ours, he was explaining to me another situation, the owner actually had to pay back all of the rent increase because the notice was invalid because the old person wasn't on the rent increase.
Yeah, which is a potential risk.
Yeah, he said it's happening a lot apparently at
Yeah.
VCAT at the moment.
Yep.
So yes, we have to make sure that's correct because they went and they had to pay 12 months of compensation back for a rent increase that was
Yeah,
wrong.
what that rent increase amount is. Yeah, so there is, on a complete, can you guys, we're only on slide 1. This is why it's a 2-day training session. There is something, and I haven't got clarification on this one just yet, but there is something around with regards to lease breaks around this. So if you think about, for those who have been doing this a long time, when a tenant gave their notice, and let's say they had 6 months left to go on the lease, what we will do is say the rent's 500, we can get 550 in the open market. What we would do is advertise it at 500, and then we would build into the marketing the rent was being increased to 550. Most of us would run that sort of campaign. However, well, some are saying to the tenants, you can lease break, but we won't charge you. We're just going to take it to the higher rent. There's some agencies that just take it straight to the higher rent, and then you've obviously got to mitigate the risks. However, the question that I don't have the answer to just yet is that when you create, let's go back to that first scenario where we go from 500 to 550, okay? In that scenario, we build the lease and they get a 12-month lease agreement, and we write into the lease that rent's being increased in 6 months' time. Are we contracting outside of the Act? Potentially we are. But remember, we can also create lease agreements upon agreement. So the question at the moment, which again, I don't have the answer, is that in those lease break situations, are our leases valid in a situation where we create a brand new tenancy because we've mitigated the outgoing tenant's risk and loss, we've re-rented the property at 500 for 6 months, we've built a rent increase because we've done all the right thing, consumer affairs, nobody can complain about us, but then is our paperwork valid? And I don't know. So this is just something that happened on Friday. It was a question, and I'm like, I will make some inquiries and I will come back. But it's something for you guys to think about.
This is just thinking out loud, because I know in a contract of sale, for example, you have your general conditions. You can put a special condition that outlaws the special condition. So is that something that maybe we could be doing?
You can't contract out of the Act. However, a rent increase can take effect because parties agree. So a perfect example is, we rent this space, the tenants want an air conditioner. We say, oh, you're on a 12-month lease, no problem, we'll put a $50 a week increase in place, effective as of tomorrow. The air conditioning's going in tomorrow. You guys can actually do that. Just because they're on a lease, you can negotiate terms outside and say, okay, the tenant agrees, because in return, they're getting a split system, and in return, they're accepting that they get a rent increase. Right, so you can do that.
Would that be a contractual agreement?
Yes, it's still a lease, but you can. That's not contracting out of the Act. It's just an agreement.
Well, so contractual agreement
Yeah.
as opposed to a rent increase.
Yes. Yeah, because they're getting something in return. Yes. Sorry? Yeah, you could create a brand new lease. Yep. It just could be the end. Or it could be a variation that gets included on the lease that says, you know, the renters accepted that as of the 25th, 26th, whatever, 25th of July, the rent's increasing from this to this because there's been a split system installed. All right, but as property managers, we get stuck and we say to the owners, oh no, we can't do anything. But the tenant wants an air conditioner, the owner's going to spend $3,000 on it. Why would you tell an owner to put air conditioning in if the owners aren't going to get anything in return? Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Where does it state in the legislation that you cannot increase the rent on a lease break? It says you have to mitigate the renter's
Yes,
risk.
it doesn't. Yeah, agreed. It doesn't.
So
It just says you have to mitigate the, well,
so
it doesn't
if
even
you-
say it in there.
So if you bring it up to the market rent on a lease break, and as long as the property leases quickly, no one's
Yes.
going to argue.
Yep, absolutely.
But if you're in a situation where it's obviously taking some time to lease the property because you have gone a little bit over the market, then you may have an argument in place.
Yes, because 6 weeks is your threshold. If you can't lease that property within 6 weeks, you're going to lose at VCAT.
Yeah.
All right, I can guarantee you that.
So with the change of tenancy, then taking up the previous renter's lease agreement,
Yep.
can we actually negotiate a new lease agreement with the tenants going in?
Yeah, you can.
I start from scratch and do that
Yeah,
increase?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just, you know, all these things can only, it's about being tested, you know, and the only time that we're going to get these clarity is when they are tested and we get written determinations so we can actually hold a position to go, okay, we understand, whilst the tribunal will, you know, they don't have precedent, we can get an understanding of how the members are thinking. Okay? Slide 1, okay. And it's only 11 o'clock. All right, let's go to slide 2. All right, we might work through this one. Once you apply to VCATs, when can you issue your next strike? All right, so comment here is when they're in arrears again. What are other thoughts? What was that one? Yep, waiting for a hearing. Yep, so we will just wait for the hearing here. All right, so another one. All right, so this is a trick question. Once you've made your application, you guys can't double dip. All right, you have made your application, you are going to VCAT or you're going to Magistrates Court. You can't run another campaign over here for rent arrears. Okay, so if you're in VCAT, you're waiting to VCAT. You're getting an outcome at VCAT. You can't on the side be issuing another notice to vacate. Okay, yep.
For a different matter though?
Yes, you can. Different matter, breach, end of fixed lease, anything along those lines, but not for the same. Yep. All right, so when is the tribunal unable to issue a payment plan under 91ZM? What's 91ZM? Rent arrears. Yes. That would trump any payment plan, yes, but there's a specific section, a specific time that they can't issue a payment plan. When is it? Which one? The fifth strike. So you guys need to know this stuff. So when you're going in on a fifth strike and you've got a member that says, you know, Ms. Calnan, I think I'm going to issue a payment plan. Well, remember, you can't. Under section 331, it is. The tribunal is unable to grant a payment plan under a strike 5 notice.
So then they dismiss their discretion.
No. No, that is one section they cannot issue a payment plan. They can issue an order of possession, a dismissal, or an adjournment. Your adjournment you might get for 3 months if you're lucky. Your rent arrears are going to have to be 30 days in arrears if you get an adjournment. If your rent arrears on a fifth strike are sitting at, let's say, 15, you're probably going to get a dismissal. All right, so you guys have to go in thinking about what's my strategy on that fifth strike, because we can't go, yes, I'm going to get fifth strike, I'm getting possession. No, you're not. Yep. Because you still have to argue reasonable and proportionate.
So make their arrears higher so that they can't.
Now we found the mean property manager. Oh, look at that, only took an hour. Well, potentially. So you might not issue the application as soon as you might want to. You know, again, we've got a notice, we can issue it, we've got an application, let's get in there. Maybe we actually just hold back and then get a longer period, because honestly, if it's sitting under 30 days, you're most probably going to get a dismissal.
Is that a risk that you have to sort of explain to the owner?
Yes.
That because you might go over the bond amount, you might not be able to recoup those?
Yeah, but landlord insurance should cover you.
Yeah, true.
If they've got insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about having these strategies going into these hearings rather than coming back to the owner and going, oh God, I don't know what just happened. If you guys can preempt a little bit, you guys are going to then find your owners are a lot more respectful of the VCAT and the VCAT system, but also your knowledge. This is potentially what we're going to have here. You know, I had one yesterday. Look, the renter can't afford it. I highlighted it numerous times. This member, I could hear him. He just didn't want to make an order of possession. You know, she's 30 days, the rent's going up. But again, strategically, we put a rent increase in place, knowing that it's eventually going to create a fault. Clearly, I'm the meaner property manager. But that's the strategy that we put in before we made the application. Right, so it's all these different things you guys need to think about. Okay, what happens if you don't respond to a VCAT directions order? What do we think? Dismissed. Yeah, it's dismissed. Yep, struck out. So they might be tolerant and allow you up to 30 days to respond, but there is far more expectation on us as an industry in VCAT now than there ever has been. It really, it's never been like this. I feel like sometimes my brain's like, God, where are they coming at this angle? What's going on? All right, 5 pieces of evidence we need for a hearing under 91ZM. So what are some pieces of evidence we need for a rent arrears hearing? Ledger, lease. Yes, maybe, not always. Yes. Park that one for the next one. Yes, service. What else? Yes, so you're highlighting your electronic service. Yep, your evidence to confirm. What else? What was that one?
Notice to vacate.
You notice to vacate, yes. Anything else? Yep, so your application should form in there as well. Making sure you guys have got a cover page. If you're not using a cover page, I'm pretty sure it's in your material today, start using a cover page. It will make life easy for you. When you can say, you know, there are some grumpy members there, and you can say, member, that's on page 63, or that's on 27, or direct them to it. Right? And they've already read your paperwork before you get to your hearing. So that will make life easy for them. 419A, what's that section? No. Bond. Bond. 419A is bond. So straight claim for bond, what do we need? Ingoing. Yep, ingoing. Exit. Outgoing. Service. All the information to the renter as well as the application. Yep. Summary, receipts, photos, invoices. Can you use quotes? No. Do not waste your time. Okay. What else do you need also? You mentioned it earlier. Bond receipt. Yep. And the other part for your 91ZM is any tenant transfer and any rent increase. So part of my hearing yesterday was to say to the member, the rent increase was issued on this date. This is taking effect, so that when he put a payment plan in place, which I knew he was going to do, he had to take into consideration not only what the rent is today, but when the rent goes up $135 a week next month. All right, so you've got to make sure you've got that information.
Need a transfer.
Yeah, whatever your transfer documents are going to look like.
With 419A, do you need evidence to show that, I think she can hear me, do you need evidence to show that you have given the option to come to the final inspection?
Yes, I love that point, thank you. Yes, so you need to make sure you've got something in your vacate email, if you haven't already, that says, hey renter, please let me know if you want to attend the final inspection. That's all you need. You don't need to say, I'm going to be there at this time, this time, this time, this time. All right? Very rarely do we see them respond. Occasionally, but yeah, you definitely need it. All right? Where could you utilise Section 130 of the VCAT Act? Does anyone know what 130 is? No. I would expect you would be onto this one. No? So 130 is that discretionary ability. All right, so discretionary can fall under lots of different things. So the VCAT member has discretionary power to be able to grant an extension if you've got a reasonable excuse, but that's 126. Where you can utilise this section is when you have made, say, we've issued a notice to vacate, we've made an application, and by the time we get to the hearing, the renter is exceed the bond. All right, if the renter is on the call, you could say, ma'am, sir, under Section 130 of the VCAT Act, you could use your discretionary power here to award the bond to the owner. And the member will say, no, I can't do that unless the renter agrees. Well, could we ask the renter now? The renter may not agree. They may say, get stuffed. Yes. Yes, so that is a particular section which we're going to talk about next. But if you're at a hearing, you've got an order of possession and the renter's on the call and you want to deal with the bond, you can actually ask the member. It's a 50-50. If you don't get it, you make an application for the bond. But if you do get it, it's one less application you have to make. All right, so it's just going to depend. But again, it's about making sure I can fill your brains with more pieces of legislation that you guys can quote and utilise. You might use it once every few months. All right. Let's have a look. When does the reasonable and proportionate test apply? Or who does the reasonable and proportionate test apply to? Everyone. It applies on every single application before the courts. Owner moving in, end of fixed term, owner selling, demolition, everything. You have to be able to argue reasonable proportion on every single section.
But I've had a VCAT hearing recently.
Yep.
Where, let's just say the rent was $2,000 a month.
Yep.
The renter told the VCAT member that she's getting $900 a fortnight through Centrelink.
Yep.
So as you know, 1,800 and 2,000 don't equal.
Nope, they don't.
This member decided that it would be unheard of for VCAT not to award a payment plan. And I advised, it's not sustainable, as you can tell, that her income is less than what the rent is. And he just kept saying to me, it would be unheard of for VCAT not to award
Yeah.
a payment plan. Now, this was member AHO, and I'm thinking, oh, I can think of what I would call you. But I won't forget him because of the name.
You'll probably get a payment plan on
Yeah.
almost every rent
Even though
arrears.
it was
Yep.
reasonable and proportionate to award possession, she was falling further and further behind. He still gave her a payment plan
Yep.
because in his mind, it is unheard of for VCAT not to do it.
And you've probably got about another 6 times going back to VCAT for
Yeah.
another 6 payment
Yeah.
plans to be put in place.
You shouldn't get multiple payment plans moving forward when that tenancy is not sustainable. What you guys have to do is create more evidence to argue the outcome before a different member.
I tried to argue with him,
Yeah.
and he said to
Yeah.
me that VCAT has got a backlog,
Yeah.
and he hung up.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even aware of what my actual order was until the next day when I got an email through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's all of it. They're just like, we're too busy for
Yeah.
you, and they hang up.
They
and you're
have
like,
been given clear, direct or instructions not to displace people.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely if the renter's on the call, even in those situations, they're going to give them a go. And then it's up to you guys to see if they fault.
Yep.
And then where, what other strategies can I put in place with that tenancy?
I actually had an owner attend one VCAT phone hearing because we had 3 payment plans with this renter, and he was in like financial distress, and he spoke to the member, gave him the opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't do this anymore. This is causing a strain on my marriage. I've just had my daughter pass. I don't need this. We're struggling financially.
Yeah.
And the member stated there that it was reasonable and proportionate, and he gave another payment plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my owner, like, you could hear this man was broken
Yeah.
on the phone.
Yeah. And some of them are just so unfair. I agree.
Mind you,
Yep.
it was probably the kick in the pants that the renter needed, because from then she actually stuck to her payment
Yeah.
plan. But it was just that situation that it's sad that even an owner's sitting there saying, I can't do it anymore. It's
Yep.
killing my marriage. I can, can't
Yeah.
afford these two.
Those ones are definitely, they're not fair.
No.
Absolutely not fair. Yeah.
I get it.
Yes, legal aid's always a fun argument against, yes. Okay, what situations would the tribunal consider trivial under the reasonable and proportionate test? Yeah, perfect. The amount of arrears. Have a strategy going in if the rent arrears at the time of the hearing is under 30 days. If the renter's not on the call, you're probably more likely to get an order of possession. If the renter is on the call, unlikely. And then think about, with reasonable proportionate would have to be, if you're trying to claim possession because of a breach, the oven's not clean, it's probably unlikely, it would be deemed trivial. All right. So section 213A, when do we use that section? Who knows what that section is? I love this section. I'm not a nerd, I promise. This is a section you guys need to think about using strategically. So 213A is when you have issued a notice to vacate and the 15th day is lapsed on your notice to vacate and you are gun ready to make your application. All right, so you log on to the hub and you can potentially tick the box of 213A, which means that you are claiming rent, possession and bond. However, you can only tick that box if the bond of the rent arrears exceed the bond at the time of your application. You can't go in thinking, oh, by the time I get to a hearing, because VCAT takes forever, the rent arrears are going to exceed the bond. It doesn't work like that. All right, so what I want you guys to think about doing is, you go back to the office this afternoon. You've got a notice to vacate that expired yesterday. And today is the day you can make the application. The renter hasn't made any payments. Right, but the bond's $2,000 and your rent arrears are sitting at $1,800. Can I suggest to you to wait? And I know it's a hard thing for PMs because we're like, nope, we need to make the app, we need to make the app. If you stop and make the application on Monday, when the rent arrears most probably will exceed the bond, you can tick 213A and then you can get the rent, bond, possession in the same hearing. There is still a risk from an insurance point of view that an owner might say, yeah, but is there a risk? Well, I think we could argue it for a policy, but make sure you explain to your owner what you're doing. All right? This is a really good section to utilise. Not enough property managers use it, or they just tick it thinking, oh, well, by the time I get there, I can use it. Doesn't work like that. But you could then, if you have ticked it, you could loop back onto that 130 of the VCAT Act. Say, member, I've ticked the box, the rent is here, could you use your discretionary powers? Worst thing they can say is no. How many days does the applicant have to respond to an on the papers direction order? 7. Yep. And if a property is owned in a company and the owner lives in New South Wales, do you apply to VCAT or the Magistrates Court? There's going to be divided. So stand up if you think it's VCAT. Okay. All right, sit down those 3 lonely people. Stand up if you think it's the Magistrates Court. There's some indecisive. All right, sit down. Who didn't vote? Why didn't you vote? No, it does, but when a property is owned, property is for lease in Victoria, the company will be registered in Victoria. So in that situation, even though the owner lives in New South Wales, if a property is owned in a company or a super fund, you apply to VCAT. It trumps the interstate party legislation, so well done to those lonely 3 people. This still confuses me. Sometimes I'm like, hang on, which way is my brain going to go? So even if the owner lives interstate, and we automatically go down the path of the interstate party legislation, if the property is owned in a company or a super fund, we go to VCAT. All right?
Because the legislation is stated around where the owner lives. The owner is a company, so the company can't live anywhere.
That's right. And the company was registered in Victoria. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Let's look. Those 3 slides only took us a little while. All right. We all good? I can see lots of you have made some notes. Yeah, we might do that. Yeah. All right. You guys have burnt your brains a little this morning. So Jem just said you guys have got morning tea out there. So I'll let you all go and get some food. And then you have to come back though. They're the rules. You can't leave me. I'm pretty sure we've got next session's material prepared. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's have a look at these. This is perfect timing because you've been fed and watered now. There's brownie being consumed over in the corner here. For you guys to work through some errors on some paperwork here. So again, in your groups, while you guys are just coming back with your coffees and your bits and pieces, what I want you to do is have a look at this example and tell me where the errors are. All right, so happy for you guys to go with your groups. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. And then we'll talk about them. All right, guys, let's have a look at this case study. Guys, come back. All right, what are our thoughts here? Where are the errors on this particular case study that the property manager made? Sorry?
Notice 3.
Yeah, tell me about notice 3.
It's served 4 days too early, so it's still the termination date.
Yeah. So if you have a look at notice 2, the termination date on notice 2 says the 7th of October. And then on notice 3, the notice to vacate was served on the 3rd of October. Yep, absolutely. There's another error.
Funds received for notice 2 and notice 3, the funds received on the same day.
It's not so much an issue, that one, because of the way that the payments are made by BPay, so it's a day behind. So today's banking is yesterday's payment. All right. Yeah, application could have been made after notice 2. This was really a 5-strike strategy that the property manager was trying to run, rather than doing just running the notices, or running a notice and then an application. How do you think, if we look at that notice 2 and notice 3, so on notice 2, the termination date's the 7th of October, and then notice 3, the rent is 17 days in arrears again on the 3rd of October. How do you think the property manager made the error?
I was going to ask about that because I actually confused about that too. So do we have to wait till we pass the 20-day termination date of the previous notice before we can make the next strike?
Yes, absolutely. So,
Same thing, I've gone in, but they got back into it and then reserved the notice straight away.
yeah.
I thought, am I doing the right thing there?
Yeah, so you've got to wait until your termination date has lapsed before you can issue a new notice. All right? But what we find in our software is that, if we're using, so we use Property Me, so this is in my office, this example. So the rent is 15 days, 17 days, 17 days. What do you think was, if we think about Property Me, we've logged on in the morning, we go, oh crap, the rent is 17 days in arrears again. How do you think, well, the rent is 17 days in arrears, but our termination date still hasn't lapsed? What do you think is the reason for that? No, it's not the part payment issue. So how are we 17 days in arrears again, but the termination dates haven't lapsed? Nope. What's service on this one? So this is one you've got to be mindful of. So in situations, so this tenancy is back in 2016, tenant's still there, he's a lawyer. I didn't even need to say anything. So this one, he doesn't have electronic consent, so everything is served registered post. So it's no longer a 14-day notice to vacate, it's a 21-day notice to vacate. So as a PM, it's very easy to get into that auto drive of, well, the rent is 17 days in arrears again, bang, I can issue a new notice. But what we have to be looking at is the termination date. And is it electronic consent? If this was an electronic consent, there wouldn't have been this error made by the PM, because those dates would have been reflective. 17 days again, no problem, we could issue a notice. So when you're looking at your notices, be careful that you don't get into this auto drive of going, well, the rent is 15, 16, 20 days in arrears, I issue a new notice. Okay? Yeah?
Why is VCAT's calculation on rent arrears always different to ours?
I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, sometimes I win, sometimes I win. Well, I always do the manual, make it 365 days. Yeah. I don't know. It's a very good question. I don't know. No. I don't normally say a blanket, I have no idea on that one. All right, let's have a look at this. All right, this is another case example. So again, I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to look at this one. So there's a lot going on here. There's notice to vacate being issued, there's tenant transfer, there's an application, there's a payment plan. The property manager went wrong a couple of times here. All right, so I'll give you guys 3 minutes and then we'll come back and look at this one. And go. All right, let's have a look at this one. There's a few different errors on this one. What's our thinking? Where did the PM go wrong? Which one? No? There, on that one, I think there was a part, maybe a part payment, they were 19 days. Yeah. But no, I like the way that you think because you're looking at them specifically in the notices. Yep, at the back. There's. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great pickup. So if you look at these, if you think about you have on your notice 2, you've made an application. All right, so we've obviously got a payment plan for 3 months. If you're in that situation and you've made a payment plan, you need to make sure you diarise it. Put it in your calendar, put it in your team leaders, your director's calendar, so that everyone is aware. So there should have been a reminder that said, on the 9th of November 2023, 3-month adjournment for Kayla expires. All right, and then a week before that should be another reminder that says, what am I doing about the 3-month expiry on this adjournment? All right, there has to be prompts. You guys have worked to get to that stage. Because on an adjournment, do you need to wait for the renter to be 14 days in arrears? No. So this one, the renter was 17 days in arrears. So they could have reopened that proceeding. They would have been 13, which would have been fun. They're probably going to get another payment plan, or it might have been dismissed as. They should have been noticed 1 and 2. What do you think they were labelled as? 3 and 4. Yep. Which doesn't make them invalid, it just confuses the crap out of everyone and the member, which you don't need. Yep.
Does the tenancy transfer affect anything?
Thank you. So this one, no, it didn't, because it wasn't a change of lease. But it is something you guys need to start looking at on every single tenancy now. Is there a tenant transfer? Is all the paperwork done before I'm serving notices and apps? But yeah, really good point. All right, let's have a look at the next one. So, notice 1, notice 2, notice 3 issued back in December. Application made 28th of December last year. So it was a registered post. All right, so I'll get you guys to look at this again in your little groups. You can see what evidence we put in place. The rent arrears at the time was $6,600, so a fair amount, and the matter was dismissed. You can imagine how pleased I was when I got that notification come on my watch from my team member. All right, so I'll give you guys a couple of minutes and then we'll come back and discuss this one. Remember, we're always looking, where did the PM go wrong? What could they have done differently? Stretch it out, yeah.
My back is getting
Oh. Yeah, it feels better moving.
Hey, Jeff, give me the microphone.
A song per slide, that could work. A slong per slide.
Presentation from one of our suppliers after your session, so 12 o'clock. Just as a heads up, so people don't go running away.
So we're finishing
12.
12?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, yeah, he'll come in and do a quick 15, 20 minute presentation.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll go a couple of minutes over, it's okay.
Yep. Am I still on? Yep. All right, what are we looking at this one? Where did the property manager go wrong? Oh, notice 1. Yeah, yes. So this was the first sign that VCAT was cracking down on tenant transfers. So what happened in 2019 and 2020? COVID. Where were you all working? You know, the bond was transferred, everything was done. Was there a document that confirmed, you know, there were A, B and C on and A stayed and B and C left? Not for the life of us. Member dismissed the application. All right, what the member wanted us to do was to issue a brand new notice to vacate on 3 renters. All right, we were like, I think we can do it differently. So we made another application under our notice. All right, what piece of evidence do you think we didn't include in our summaries? The original lease. Because why do we need the original lease? Pre-approved service. All right, it was still a battle, but it was a quicker outcome. It was a risk, but it was a quicker outcome than issuing brand new notices, serving it on renters that hadn't been around for 4 years. All right, so this is definitely where we've started to see this pattern with regards to tenant transfers. Okay, so just recapping on a couple of things. So we know that VCAT matters in person. The bond and compensation hearings are still happening. All right, so we've got those. They're happening King Street, Oakley, I think Frankston. Dandenong, I don't know if has anyone been to Dandenong recently? No, I don't know if Dandenong's got space for VCAT anymore. Ringwood, regional, all right. There is a strong push that VCAT will be returning 91ZM matters to in-person. All right, which means you can no longer do them on the side of the road like I often do. In between appointments, when I'm on hold, I drive a few more kilometres and then I stop again and wait and then I drive a few more. So that is a big push. I would not be surprised if that happens next year. Well, it's going to create more time out of the office for you guys. However, I think it's going to bring back the formality, which I think a lot of property managers lack.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know.
They'll be able to see the tenants' reaction.
Yeah, they can see when, you know, they can see your facial expressions, which you're all going to have to practice for the next 6 months. No more rolling your eyes on the phone. Because I can... Yeah. You can't mute in person. All right? The other thing, a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. Also, you can request for genuine reasons for matters to be phone hearings. So in the event that you've got hearings for bond and comp or bond that are backlogged, then you can request them to be phone. However, my tip here is you cannot put in your request to say, driving to King Street's too far. I've got to pick the kids up. I've got routines that day. Can you rearrange it for me? What else? Other of my favourites. I've waited so long for this hearing, it doesn't suit my schedule. Can you reschedule it? These are genuine comments that property managers write VCAT. I kid you not. All right, so VCAT is a formal court. I know we all get shitty about it, but you guys need to have some respect in that place because they all talk about you guys. I can guarantee you that there are certain brands, there are certain brands that they know these property managers are not skilled in VCAT.
Would it be unreasonable then that if you got 2 hearings on the same day in person, one at 10 a.m, one at 2 p.m, to ask for them to be moved to the same time?
I don't think it's unreasonable.
We got told absolutely no way, Nikovsky. They don't care.
You can work in there. That is the other component. You can work in King Street or you can work in your car. So, you know, you have to think about this. If this was in the magistrate's court, would you have the same level of gore to ask a judge?
No, that's right.
You're probably not going to.
How many bond and compensation cancellation claims have people got left?
All right, so I'm going to lead to that one. I'm going to just bounce here. So there's 3,000 cases left in the backlog. All right, so some comments also here. When you're doing your face-to-face in-person hearings, you must bring 3 hard copies. One for you, one for the member, one for the respondent. Even though you've already emailed it through, you must provide it. You need to also make sure that you are including all of your notice to vacate documents, because again, there's lots of issues there where property managers are not including that. You need to make sure that you are just emailing VCAT at courts. Right, that is the only email, unless it's a backlog one. VCAT at courts is the only email you guys use. Don't CC in all of the emails. Because what happens is that courts team work on your email, VCAT team work on your email, and backlog team work on your email. And then you guys wonder why things take so long. Only email one email. Don't CC in all of them because they're all working separately. VCAT at courts.
So what's renting at VCAT for?
That was one that was used previously. VCAT at courts is the one you use. All right? I can tell you from... Hang on, shush, 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 shush. We've only got a couple of more minutes. There is a perception in VCAT that our industry causes a portion of the delays because our paperwork is wrong, our attitude sucks, and we do not know what we're doing. All right? I disagree to a degree, but having sat in on some cases, there are times that I go, whoa. All right, some other points. When you're emailing VCAT, this is what you put in your subject line: payment plan and reference number, renewal of proceedings reference number, summary of proofs reference number. So if you are late submitting your summary proofs, like I've got one where I'm working for a client, hearings Monday at 9:30, they haven't sent me the paperwork. My summaries probably will go in tonight sometime. I'm so late. But I will write urgent, summary of proofs, reference number, hearing scheduled Monday. My first line will be, good afternoon, I apologise to the court for the late submission of my paperwork. I write that a lot because a lot of clients submit paperwork wrong, incorrect, late to me. All right, so you guys have to just have another level of respect. I get VCAT is shitty at times. I probably more than anyone roll my eyes the most. But you guys just need to have a level of respect there because I can't stress to you enough. The members have memories like, they're not fishes, they're elephants, that's it. All right, other thing when you're serving your notice to vacate, include your rent increase notices, which I've talked to you about, and also your summary proofs, make sure they're all in page number. This is an example of your summary proofs cover page. It's really simple. This is what you guys start doing if you're not already doing it. You'll get compliments from the members saying, thank you for being so organised. It will save you time. And in the event that you've missed something, you'll get a level of benefit of the doubt from the member. And it's something that just happened on Friday for me. Long-term tenant, we buy registered posts in the bulk. I don't know if anyone else does, but we do. So on our notices, we have the sticker and we have the stamp because you get the post office to stamp it. This member said to me, and I've had this twice now, she said to me, how do I know it's been served registered post? I said, thankfully I'm in the car, my eyes don't roll too far. Like, ma'am, you can see it's stamped by the post office, this is our process. She says, but I like to see the envelope. So it's a practice that we have to think about. If you do not in your office use the envelopes, which a lot of offices don't because they buy the reels of the registered post, what we're probably going to need to do on those ones where we have to serve them registered post because they're long-term tenants, is that we're going to need to get a copy of the envelope that's got, Dear Dora's address type thing, with the sticker on it so that we can prove service. All right, because that application, if the renter was there and challenged that they never received it, yes, they can do the tracking, but it could have flawed my case. This member, it's not one I've had a lot, but every now and again, but I've had 2 members, the same thing. I want to see the registered post envelope. the envelope to see that it's been, because I can see the notice, but I want to see it's actually been sent to that renter. So they want to see the envelope with the tenant's name, the address with the slip sticker on it. Yeah, yeah. All right, hang on. Question? Jem, hang on this. Yeah, if you've got the slip, so if you're using the envelope and then you know the back page, the back slip, yeah, but we don't use that because we just have the roll. Yeah. Yes. So this is where you've got to just be careful. All right, I'm going to stop there. I think we got through a whole, 10 slides for the day.
Sorry, just one quick
Yes.
question. With
Hang on. I've got a couple of questions before I finish.
the cover sheet, that's just to be bringing to the court, or would you email that as
So
well?
which one?
The cover sheet.
Cover sheet is always in my summary. So when I do my cover sheet, and then it'll go pages 1 to 4, summary proofs, and then blah, 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 blah. Yep. And I just have it as a default, so every time I do summaries, I just pick up my last one, and you'll see at the top there, you'll have the reference, what I'm doing my summaries for. So the one on Friday was subletting, and then I quote the reference number. It's just nice and easy for the member. Takes away the questions. The less questions the member has to ask me, the better off we are. All right, any other questions that anyone wants to throw at me? We got heaps to cover next month now. Okay. I've prepared it already. Yes. Yep.
You know how you email the whole kit and caboodle in one thing?
Yep.
Is it also best practice to also do the bulk one, then break it up? So if the member just wants to go to the rent increase, they don't need to scroll through?
Yeah, it depends on your paperwork. So there's a client I work with, and they've got a really, really big lease. So I often find that I need to send my summary proofs in 2 emails. So it'll say email 1 of 2 and 2 of 2.
What I meant
type.
was everything
you label
in one
it?
bulk, and
Yeah.
then you break everything up into separate.
No, I don't think you need to. I think just having your summary proof so the member can scroll through and know on page 42 is the rent increase, page 62 is the lease agreement, and they can scroll through.
So in other words, I'm doubling up.
You're probably creating more work for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. The other part also with your condition reports, and I don't think we talk about this, but when you're doing bond claims, if you're claiming carpet and walls, all right, you show ingoing for carpet and walls. The member doesn't need to see your 6,000 other photos for your bathroom, kitchen, garden. Just supply what you're claiming before and after. Save yourself some time.
Another thing I've come across recently, just because VCAT's been wonderful about picking on silly things, is we had a situation where we sent a file through. I was on leave at the time. One of my colleagues sent it, and it converted to a type of file that VCAT does not accept.
Right.
They did not let me know that.
Yeah.
And I was chasing confirmation and a hearing date, and I was told once it had been struck out that the file format was incorrect. So just be careful when you're sending large files, the kind of format that it's sent in.
Yeah. And normally it does, in my experience, it comes back to say if the file's too large.
Yes, I did it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I did it. It converted to some kind of, I can't even remember the type of file it was.
Yeah, that's weird.
I didn't accept.
Yeah, and because you can send videos through to VCAT as part of your evidence as well. Again, you just need to make it clear what the video is and then not maybe embed it into all of your other documents. So if you wanted to demonstrate, I don't know, carpet stains and you've got a clear video, then that, again, is evidence that the member can review before a hearing. Oh, all right. Yeah.
Actually, up as a group, I actually do lack a little bit of experience in VCAT as well. Does anyone have any cases coming up in Frankston that maybe I could accompany them with, just to kind of get a feel for them?
Give me a couple of weeks, won't be too long. You won't be too long.
Yeah.
That's okay, Calnan. I
Yeah.
really appreciate just to kind of actually, to see it in thing.
It's
been
a
long
l-
time since I've been. So.
I love that approach because, I still get nervous going in. Have we got everything? Oh God, who have I got? And what am I going to do? And so you've got to make sure, don't be afraid to go to VCAT. if I put on my employer hat on, if I was interviewing somebody and they said they never went to VCAT, I'd be going, well, you clearly aren't willing to get in there and fight for a client, or you don't know what you're doing, or you're too scared to go. And I get it, it's scary, but it's part of your job. And what I think will happen over time is that businesses will probably create people in their teams or their networks that just do VCAT. A bit like the old school, the people that just did maintenance or just did this. I think you'd eventually, your brain might explode, but there might just be an area of expertise for some, because it's not for everyone. I agree. Yeah, yeah. But there should be, and I would expect as part of the government and also from REOB that CPD will come through, and real estate, because Victoria I think is one of the only states that doesn't have it. Absolutely, because what I talked to you about today, in 6 months' time if I see you again, there might be a different approach to so many things. So, yeah.
This might be a silly question.
Never.
I think I had a VCAT hearing recently where I had videos, the one I was talking to you about before.
Yeah.
And I tried to submit them to VCAT and they wouldn't take the videos.
Yeah.
Can you submit videos or not?
Yes, you can. Yeah. So you might need to send them through individually. There is a stat deck, but they should, yeah.
They just said they don't accept them.
No, they do. Yeah, it might just be because they want to make sure that it's not a risk.
Yeah.
That would be the only issue. But also think about what you don't want to be sending a 3-minute video on something that you could probably qualify in, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had one where there was terrible stains in floorboards and carpet, and I needed to demonstrate that as part of my claim, which, the member needed to see that as, to make perspective of the rest of the reports. Yeah, so. All right.
So the 3,000, what did that come down from?
5.8, which was, we got that update yesterday.
So about halfway through.
Yeah, so they'll clear that by the end of the year.
Yeah.
There'll be no more backlog. Yeah, there's not that many coming through now. Yeah. All right.
What's the average time for waiting for a hearing date?
Rent arrears should be somewhere about 6 weeks.
Okay, I'm sitting on about 4 weeks at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've got one where they're dragging, in your subject line, you could ask attention the registrar, because there's multiple registrars, and you could say, again, politely, respectfully, I'm just checking in to see, is there an ETA and when this one might be listed. The registrars will often come back to you rather than the staff. But don't utilise it all the time. Like, I've got a friend that works in VCAT. I can't call her every day. There are times when I might want to try and find out something, and then I can utilise it then. But yeah, you've got to pick your battles. Yes. So renewals, absolutely. There's a delay with renewals.
But yesterday I emailed VCAT to say, because they're now 69 days again in arrears and they're not budging.
Yeah.
So I actually did an email to the courts asking for an urgent hearing date with an updated stat deck from the owner saying I'm in financial stress, blah, 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 blah. Copy of the ledger, copy of the original
Order,
copy of the original application, and I've got a hearing in 2 weeks.
Yeah, they do try and accommodate where they can. It also depends on spaces and stuff. So, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes. I do feel like I've bombarded all of your brains. There was a few facial expressions I saw, like, oh God, is she leaving yet? But thank you for having me. I'll see you guys next month. I know you guys, there is something happening here after I leave, so you can't leave yet, is what I've been told. That's correct, isn't it, Gemma? Oh.
Because I'm the quiet, shy one, I just wanted to thank Leah very much for today, because whether you're an old dog like me or you're a newbie or you're somewhere in the middle, I feel like we always walk away from her sessions with something. So thank you, Leah. Look forward to next month. Just a quick one for those of you that weren't sitting over in our little group. I just wanted to wish Susanna in our team a very happy birthday. It's her birthday today. And we now